Prince William recently appointed Peter Phillips, who is the eldest grandson of the late Queen Elizabeth II, alongside his new wife, Harriet Sperling, as an associate member to help share the royal patronage burden. This unprecedented decision, which clearly established the actual boundaries of power, put Queen Camilla in an incredibly awkward and embarrassing position. The direct message from the Prince of Wales was very clear. The British monarchy needs people who genuinely serve out of duty rather than outsiders trying to replace others to gain personal influence. One single and highly controversial proposal has pushed the entire royal institution to the very brink of a major constitutional crisis. This was the attempt to grant Tom Parker Bowles, the son of Queen Camilla, a highly prestigious and influential royal patron role. Such a position symbolises the absolute trust of the royal family, the formal and official endorsement of the Queen acting as a direct extension of the monarchy's relationship with the public. Historically, these positions have always been strictly reserved for working members of the royal family, those who actually possess royal blood and are directly accountable to the state. So, when reports started circulating within the absolute highest echelons of the palace, that Queen Camilla was quietly pushing for her non-royal son to assume one of these sacred roles, it was a massive seismic shift. Prince William and Princess Anne flatly refused to sign the proposal, making it clear this was no minor disagreement over administrative paperwork. This represented a total flat-out rejection of Queen Camilla's personal vision of a modernised and flexible monarchy. William and Princess Anne were not simply questioning this appointment. Why was Queen Camilla so incredibly desperate to bring her son into the formal ranks of the British monarchy at this particular time? And what would it truly mean for the future of the House of Windsor if a member of the Parker Bowles family was suddenly granted the symbolic power of the throne? This highly strategic move to insert Tom Parker Bowles directly into the inner sanctum of official royal responsibilities was far from a simple random act of motherly pride. Instead, it was a meticulously calculated response to the single most severe personnel crisis the House of Windsor has faced in the modern era. To understand the actual desperation driving this complex manoeuvre, one must look directly at the devastating depletion of the royal roster. Over the last several years, the stable of high-profile active working royals has shrunk down to a dangerously critical level. The self-imposed exile of Prince Harry to California has completely severed the family from its most charismatic and popular young public figure, while the absolute and permanent banishment of Prince Andrew following his catastrophic personal scandals removed another senior peer entirely from active public duty. The monarchy was suddenly left feeling deeply short-handed. Compounding this growing institutional vacuum is the poignant reality of King Charles III's health. At 76 years old, the king remains deeply engaged in a highly structured, medically mandated battle against cancer. His daily schedule is no longer dictated solely by the endless, exhausting demands of the state, but by a very strict, non-negotiable balance between necessary rest and limited public engagements. This means that the relentless tide of major national events, official state dinners, and the representation of hundreds of diverse charities has fallen squarely onto a dwindling handful of shoulders. The numbers simply do not add up anymore. The sheer volume of these royal patronages requires a constant, highly visible physical presence, and the current workload is placing an unsustainable, crushing pressure on the remaining members of the royal line. It was right within this vacuum of power and physical exhaustion that Queen Camilla saw a strategic opportunity. By leveraging her unique position as the king's closest confidant and the de facto manager of his daily energy, she began quietly advancing a persistent narrative that the monarchy was desperately in need of some immediate reinforcements. Camilla began privately expressing concerns about the quality and continuity of royal duties, suggesting that the current institutional setup was placing an unfair and hazardous burden on the heir to the throne. In a series of subtle discussions behind closed palace doors, she went so far as to question the long-term capacity of Prince William and Princess Anne to sustain this relentless pace alone without collapsing under the immense strain. She strongly argued that the current crisis required radical, modern flexibility rather than rigid adherence to outdated rules. Enter Tom Parker Bowles. Born in 1974, Tom has spent his entire adult life completely outside the royal apparatus, carving out his own highly successful career as a very prominent food writer, culinary critic and author. He is a well-known, highly experienced media personality comfortable in the public eye and possesses a massive network of highly influential friends across the culinary and journalistic worlds. From Camilla's personal perspective, her son was the perfect plug-in-place solution to the palace's ongoing manpower crisis. She viewed him as a highly energetic and capable professional who had already demonstrated a truly significant commitment to charitable endeavours in his own private capacity. To her, introducing Tom into a select few high-profile royal patronages was never a cheap grab for power, but a natural. It was a pragmatic step for a modern blended royal family. She pitched her son as a loyal helper ready to share the workload, take on some of the heavy public duties and give King Charles the much-needed space he really needed to recover. But what Camilla painted as a sensible modern fix, Prince William and Princess Anne saw as a massive, dangerous threat to the core of the crown itself. They didn't block this move because they disliked Tom Parker Bowles, but rather out of a deep and fierce loyalty to the strict constitutional rules of the crown. To both William and Anne, these royal boundaries are completely absolute and non-negotiable. The legitimacy of the British monarchy comes from a strict sacred bloodline and a deep promise of public duty. Official working roles inside the royal family belong strictly to the king himself, his direct blood heirs and the close family members who have made lifelong promises to serve the nation. The line of succession and the sharing of official royal duties have to follow a very clear and predictable path from the monarch to his kids, and then to his dedicated siblings Princess Anne and Prince Edward. Bringing a non-bloodline relative like Tom Parker Bowles directly into the official work of the monarchy would completely break that crucial ancient boundary. It would tell the entire world that royal status and all the massive privilege attached to it are no longer about your birthright, strict constitutional law or a lifetime of sacrifice, but are instead driven by favouritism and personal connections. Both William and Anne knew that giving Tom a royal patronage would set an incredibly dangerous new precedent. If the son of a queen consort can be easily elevated to speak for the crown today, what's going to stop the extended families of future kings and queens from demanding that same power and prestige down the road? By drawing this very firm line against the Parker Bowles family, the Prince of Wales and the Princess Royal made a clear statement. The British monarchy is a sacred and enduring institution of the state, not some private family business to be handed out for the convenience of whoever's currently on the throne. To really understand the intense anger sparked by this idea, you have to look closely at the massive constitutional weight and the symbolic power that a royal patron holds inside the British crown. A royal patronage is never just a simple title or some honorary badge you hand out like political favours to your friends. It is the ultimate stamp of approval from the crown itself. When a working royal takes on the role of an official patron, a medical foundation or a cultural group, or even a historic military regiment, they are not simply lending a famous name. They are using the massive prestige of the state to lift up that group. Having a royal patron serves as an ironclad guarantee of total public trust, offering an institutional shield that lifts the organisation right above the messy drama of business and politics. For generations, this setup has worked on a quiet, unspoken understanding. A royal patron stands for the shared identity of the whole nation, and that role only carries weight because the patron is an official, constitutional member of the House of Windsor. The public looks at them and sees someone who has willingly given up their private life to serve the country. And so, if Tom Parker Bowles were handed a role like this, the fallout would be absolutely disastrous for the integrity of the crown. It would show that the palace was quietly, subtly embracing Tom as an official representative of the royal family. Such a move would blur the boundaries so badly that normal people would no longer be able to tell the difference between a bloodline member of the royal family bound by a lifelong oath and a regular private citizen who just happens to be the son of the Queen. This is the exact heart of the bitter clash, and it is a battle line that Prince William's been preparing to defend for years. Long before this current crisis ever blew up, the Prince of Wales was very vocal about setting strict permanent boundaries between the working members of the royal house and the extended family of Queen Camilla. William has watched with a very cautious, protective eye as the social circle around the Queen has slowly grown its presence inside historic royal spaces. He has always insisted that while Camilla is the crowned queen and deserves the respect of her high office, her children and relatives from her first marriage must remain strictly classified as regular private citizens. They are welcome guests at private family events, but they are entirely separate from the actual machinery of the state. The very second those boundaries are allowed to slip, even by just a tiny fraction, the credibility of the whole British monarchy starts to wash away. When the controversial proposal to elevate Tom Parker Bowles was first brought forward, Princess Anne and Prince William immediately turned the tables on the Queen's camp by launching a fierce, unyielding cross-examination regarding strict palace protocol. They completely bypassed any emotional and personal arguments, striking directly at the very heart of administrative legitimacy. They demanded a full, completely transparent audit of the entire vetting process, questioning whether this sudden recommendation had actually been subjected to the strict scrutiny of formal royal councils. Under normal circumstances, appointing a royal patron is an exhaustive process, requiring months of deep background checks and constitutional review, along with the explicit formal consensus of senior advisers and council members who weigh the long-term impact on the reputation of the Crown. William and Anne openly challenged the exact official mechanisms by which Tom's name had progressed through the system. They asked whether the proper channels had been deliberately bypassed or quietly accelerated under the cover of the current personnel shortage. By focusing their attack on the process itself, the Princess Royal and the heir to the throne exposed a deeply uncomfortable truth. The proposal lacked the essential institutional consensus required for a decision of this magnitude. They effectively forced the palace bureaucrats to openly admit that the normal, rigorous safeguards specifically designed to prevent nepotism and favouritism had not been fully deployed. This clever tactical manoeuvre successfully dragged the dispute from a private family disagreement into a formal, undeniable high-stakes matter of state governance, leaving the proponents of this appointment with absolutely no procedural ground to stand on. The rapid escalation of this dispute quickly shattered the fragile peace within the palace corridors, splitting the royal household into two fiercely competing ideological camps. On one side stood the active faction supporting Queen Camilla, a group composed of select modernising courtiers, senior advisers, and a few highly sympathetic members of the wider aristocracy. This group chose to view the proposed elevation of Tom Parker Bowles not as a direct violation of sacred tradition, but as a completely natural, modern recognition of his quiet, private, charitable involvement and his growing public engagement. They argued passionately for institutional flexibility, pushing a narrative that a modern monarchy must remain agile enough to adapt to unprecedented circumstances. To this modernising faction utilising an energetic, articulate, and well-meaning family member to plug a glaring gap in the royal workforce was a common-sense solution that reflected the reality of modern blended families everywhere. They truly believed that the public would easily accept Tom's presence if it meant the work of vital national charities could continue without interruption. Opposing them was a formidable solid wall of resistance led by Princess Anne and Prince William, backed by the immense institutional weight of senior civil servants and traditionalist courtiers who populate the permanent structures of the monarchy. Critics of the proposal argued with absolute conviction that these patronages, linked directly to the crown, carry a symbolic and constitutional importance that transcends individual achievement or temporary logistical convenience. To this group, the entire issue was completely stripped of any personal feelings. It was entirely a matter of strict institutional principle. They maintained that the British monarchy has successfully survived for centuries precisely because it has relied on carefully maintained, unyielding clear boundaries between private family relationships and official state authority. The moment those boundaries appear blurred, even slightly, the entire structure becomes vulnerable to accusations of favouritism and nepotism, which can fatally undermine the public's confidence in the integrity of the Crown. As the confrontation intensified, senior officials, who had initially treated the proposal as a routine administrative matter, found themselves caught in a furious bureaucratic crossfire. The moment Princess Anne lent her immense institutional weight to the intense debate, the tone instantly changed from a quiet policy discussion to an outright battle over the future direction of the monarchy. For decades, the Princess Royal has actively cultivated an unrivalled reputation as the most disciplined, relentless defender of protocol within the House of Windsor. She is universally respected as someone who views established procedures not as simple bureaucratic inconveniences, but as the very foundation upon which royal legitimacy rests. Her sharp, timely intervention immediately transformed the conversation, forcing critical advisers to debate not just the suitability of Tom Parker Bowles, but the very mechanisms through which the monarchy evaluates its representatives. Princess Anne and Prince William initiated a devastating historic comparison, looking back at the long tradition of patronage appointments to highlight how dangerously this current proposal departed from established precedent. Historically, whenever distant or non-working royals were handed official patronages, it was done under incredibly strict, tightly managed guidelines that left zero room for any confusion. Even when lesser-known members of the actual bloodline received duties, they always had to answer directly to a very clear constitutional authority. Bringing a stepchild with absolutely no royal blood into a prominent public role would break completely with centuries of modern palace history. Critics raised a sharp, highly awkward question that echoed right through the palace. If historical rules and precedents could just be bent to favour a stepson, where would they ever manage to draw the line in the future? If a stepson can represent the crown, what stops the monarchy from breaking apart into a messy collection of private personal interests? Princess Anne had so much professional respect behind her that her demand for a formal, rigid review could not be brushed aside as simple stubbornness. Her voice carried the authority of 50 years of completely devoted public service, pushing every single person in that room to admit they were facing a deeply serious institutional threat. She insisted that established rules exist for one reason: to prevent family favours from ever getting in the way of the serious ongoing duties to the nation. The issue was no longer about one simple job or one charity. It had turned into a massive defining battle over palace rules, public trust and ultimate accountability. By standing completely firm, traditionalists forced everyone inside the palace to look directly at a very raw, uncomfortable truth. The public credibility of the crown cannot be preserved through empty titles alone. It relies on people knowing the rules apply to everyone equally, no matter how close you might be to the actual throne. Right when the internal battle reached its absolute breaking point, Prince William pulled off a brilliant tactical move that completely destroyed Queen Camilla's claim of a royal staffing shortage. In a move that was both highly strategic and incredibly practical, the heir to the throne offered a clever backup option that fit beautifully with his plan for a modern, slimmed-down royal family. Instead of searching outside the royal bloodline for help, William looked inward, choosing to lean on the family tree to find someone with an incredible reputation who already had the quiet respect of the public. He put forward Peter Phillips, who is the eldest grandson of the late Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Anne's son, alongside his new wife, Harriet Sperling. This calculation was meant to give the royal family a highly capable, trusted backup team, totally wiping out any need for the highly controversial selection of Tom Parker Bowles. Choosing Peter Phillips was an absolute masterclass that won instant, widespread praise from seasoned royal historians and old-school palace traditionalists alike. Unlike other royals who spent their lives sheltered deep inside the soft cushions of extreme privilege, Peter stands out as a genuine self-made businessman in the real civilian world. He has built up over 20 years of high-level corporate experience, mastering the tricky details of business and corporate marketing, and major sports events through prominent roles at Jaguar and Williams Formula One, and his work as managing director of SEL UK. This heavy business background is incredibly valuable to modern charities, which desperately need to stretch their limited funding and run things with the speed of 20th century businesses. Brought up by Princess Anne to rely only on himself, Peter has never actually wanted or held a royal title, but he has always ranked high as a steady, decent face for the royal family. More than that, his close, lifelong bond with Prince William means he has functioned for years as a quiet peacemaker and a rock of support for the future king, turning him into the perfect bulletproof pick to step in and help out. The genius of William's grand plan got even better when he brought in Peter's wife, Harriet Sperling, whose real-world career offered a beautiful natural addition to the family's list of charity work. Working as a deeply passionate children's nurse, Harriet brings a mountain of first-hand medical knowledge and clinic floor experience that you almost never see in royal circles. For quite some time, the central pillar of Catherine's public legacy has been her major work with the Royal Foundation Centre for Early Childhood, focusing closely on early childhood development and paediatric mental health. Now, with Catherine carefully balancing her slow recovery from illness with her public duties, the household was looking at a massive empty space in their most important charity work. Harriet's quick willingness to step up and offer her real clinical experience provided a seamless bridge, keeping these vital national health campaigns moving forward without dumping a crushing, exhausting burden on the recovering Princess of Wales. By bringing in this energetic couple, Prince William and Princess Anne introduced a fresh blueprint called the Associate Royals Model. Under this new setup, Peter and Harriet do not take a single penny of public money, and they will not get official royal titles that might spark political outrage or cost British taxpayers extra cash. Instead, they act as top ambassadors, giving their expertise to crucial campaigns. To guarantee complete security and avoid any messy media drama, Kensington Palace set up an absolute ironclad protocol. Every single public appearance, official statement, or charity event they attend has to be cleared first by William's personal press team, keeping their message totally aligned with the royal family. On top of that, there is a hard line between public duty and private business. When Peter works his corporate day job, he is legally banned from using royal branding, and when they do charity work, they do it purely as volunteering family members, keeping their public outings rare enough to protect the prestige of the royal stamp of approval. This brilliant strategy was a complete devastating checkmate against the Parker Bowles push. Prince William was polite but completely firm in his final stance. The palace needed elite backup to handle the workload, not permanent outsiders stepping into historic royal roles. By offering a perfect bloodline-linked alternative that cost nothing and required no bending of the rules, William and Anne left Queen Camilla and her son in an incredibly awkward spot. The claim that the palace had to rely on non-bloodline relatives was completely shattered in just one afternoon. Harriet Sperling's eager readiness to step up, paired with Peter's corporate smarts, showed what quiet, dignified service looks like, making the attempt to bring in an outsider look like a risky political mess the family did not need. The final resolution to this tense palace power struggle came quietly, but with a sharp finality that restored the old hierarchy. Faced with a completely united wall from Prince William and Princess Anne, and blocked by a solid, bloodline alternative that killed off any excuses about a staffing shortage, the plan to promote Tom Parker Bowles fell flat on its face. Realizing that pushing this any further would set off a heavy, open constitutional debate within the palace, Queen Camilla decided to back down and withdraw her proposal. She immediately walked away from the talks, ending the entire push. The controversial plan to give her son a piece of the royal machinery was dead in the water, keeping the family's old boundaries safe. This clean victory brought massive relief to King Charles III, who watched the whole dramatic standoff wrap up with a quiet sigh of relief. For a king who has spent his whole reign juggling his messy blended family against the heavy demands of his historic crown, William and Anne's smart countermove offered the perfect constitutional exit ramp. Charles was especially pleased to see Peter Phillips and Harriet Sperling step deeper into the family's volunteer support team. He saw their eager, unpaid dedication to the crown as a huge sign of family strength and unity across generations of the bloodline. The king's clear backing of William's plan completely closed the case, sending a sharp warning that the inner circle will always protect its traditional bloodline at all costs. Inside the home of the Prince and Princess of Wales, the feeling was pure, quiet relief and celebration. Catherine was apparently thrilled with how it turned out, incredibly grateful that Harriet Sperling was so eager to step in and help with her early childhood health campaigns. As for Harriet and Peter, they took on this unique chance to serve the crown with absolute humility and pride. They showed an absolute hunger to pitch in and support the nation's key charities, acting as a truly refreshing example of service one that asks for zero fancy titles or public money, driven instead by a deep loyalty to their family and a strong sense of duty. Sliding smoothly into this volunteer role has already sent a massive surge of energy right through the palace walls, looking past the immediate relief of a crisis narrowly dodged. This crushing defeat of the Parker Bowles proposal serves as a deep, lasting lesson about how the British monarchy must survive in this complicated modern era. That fierce, uncompromising pushback from Princess Anne and Prince William was never just some petty family feud or a bitter grudge against a single ordinary citizen. It was a crucial, necessary shield to protect the Constitution, by forcing everyone to look closely at protocol and demanding complete open honesty. These fierce, watchful defenders of tradition reminded the entire country that the Crown's credibility cannot survive on shallow modern updates or quick personal shortcuts. They proved once again that the fragile trust between the Crown and the public relies entirely on knowing that the rules of the state apply consistently to everyone, no matter the personal relationships or changing family drama. Ultimately, this short but incredibly sharp clash has cleared the path forward for the House of Windsor as they struggle to survive the messy 21st century. It proved the family must stay flexible to handle massive, unexpected logistical headaches. They cannot throw away core royal bloodline rules or institutional separation just for a bit of temporary convenience. Slamming the door on Queen Camilla's plan has drawn an ironclad line that will guide this royal palace for generations. It stands as a permanent warning inside this ancient house. While personal charm might sway things behind closed doors for a moment, the hard demands of duty and tradition always win. This brutal fight between personal pull and official obligation ended in a total victory for the state, ensuring the actual keys to this kingdom stay locked in the heavy hands of those who actually bear the crown's weight.